Commissioner Davis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rucci. Is there discussion? Commissioner Robinson?
We heard a lot of articulate citizens speaking in opposition to this bill this evening. I think the first speaker mentioned this, and there is a difference between closed session and confidential information. And the comparison that I'll make is that when Congress is briefed on matters of national security, it is behind closed doors. But following all these meetings, the first thing you see are congressmen emerging to a tree of microphones. And they speak of everything but matters of national security. So again, I repeat, there is a difference between closed session and confidential information. And I have spoken out repeatedly in previous times when this has come before us. The paper said I called it unconstitutional. I called it un-American. And it truly is un-American.
So why are we going into closed session then? Can you answer that?
Well, personally, I think we go into closed session on too many issues.
We don't call it. I mean, it's an agenda set. Our commissioner president approves it.
No, I
don't think that's
Our attorneys recommend. We don't say we're going into closed session. Our attorneys recommend it. So tell me what. Well, this whole thing started by saying, what can we say in closed session when we come out? This is how this whole thing started. Well, I could care less whether they go in closed session or not.
Okay.
But let me know what we can say.
Well, let me ask the county attorneys this question then. Is everything that is discussed in closed session confidential? Or is everything that is confidential remain confidential forever?
be careful here.
You need to be real.
Can I, if I may, and then I'll come back to you. But I would really like to sort of have my say on this, and this I think may be helpful, Commissioner Rucci. But I think there's always a little bit of confusion about the Open Meetings Act. The Open Meetings Act is intended to be a guide, well, not a guide, the law in terms of when and how and under what circumstances we as a board, to your question, Commissioner Rucci, can move into closed session. And there's an expectation that while we're in there, that we are going to adhere to that. Someone mentioned a whistleblower. Well, once we get in there, the only really recourse that any of us would have would be to file an Open Meeting Act complaint if we go astray, and that's certainly not a good situation for any of us to find ourselves in. And then there's the Public Information Act. So you have the Open Meetings Act that says when and how you can go into closed session to discuss something. It does not speak to, in any way, shape, or form, what any of us as individuals can speak about. As a matter of fact, there's actually an opinion associated with the manual. I know many of you are familiar with the manual. It's opinion number 99-14, wherein a council member complained about another council member for breaching confidentiality, and the Open Meetings Act board said, sorry about that, not our problem. We don't regulate what individuals can say, which is one of the reasons why I think an Attorney General opinion with regard to how this meshes with Maryland law would be helpful. The second thing is the Public Information Act. This law says that any information that would not be available. Well, the fact of the matter is, if you really look carefully at the Public Information Act, once again, it's very clear what information is available. So one could argue that what is said in closed session, isn't the Public Information Act wouldn't apply to it. Okay, so this is sort of what all this brings me to. We've had breaches, and I can see why people are frustrated. Commissioner Rucci, all of us.
When it comes to personnel, give me a definition on that.
Well, personnel is we have a right to go into closed session to discuss personnel. But my point is, if without some sort of legislation, there's really very little you could do if somebody talks about it. And what I want to say also is, and I think we have to be fair and honest with ourselves, there have been a lot of breaches. Where they all come from, nobody knows, only the shadow knows, but you are way too young for that. So we as commissioners have no whistleblower status. We're not protected by the whistleblower law. That is strictly for employees. And so where do we find ourselves today? And I think what is lacking, first and foremost, is a set of rules of procedure that really spell out who can do what and how and that sort of thing. But I just want to say in closing, and I ask you all to really carefully consider this, we've had a lot of disagreements. And there are many people, when they elected us, that were very upset that the previous board did not have enough disagreements. Okay, we're not supposed to always get along about everything, and I know I'm going off the subject here, but one of the things we did do right was we claimed that we cared about transparency, and we started public forums. That was the first time it had ever been done in the history of this county. And I just think that it would be a very sad night and a sad note for us to end this with, and now we're going to figure out a way how we can point the finger at each other and censor each other and reprimand each other.
The whole purpose of this bill, I didn't invent this bill, okay? I asked what we can talk about and what we can't talk about, and this is what came about. I don't care about this bill. I just want to know what we can do and what we can't do, and that's how this all came about. Because after leaving closed session, people were coming out and talking about it. I asked the attorneys, are you allowed to do that? This is how this came about. This isn't my bill. I'm asking what we can say and what we can't say. Because for years, when I took an oath, I came out, I'm afraid to talk to anybody about anything. And then I'm seeing people coming out and talking to people, and I asked, what can we do and what we can't do? I could care less if there's a closed session or open session, but I'm doing what I'm told to do by the law. So that's all I'm asking.
And Commissioner Ricci, I would just like to say that we can, I think they can come up with any law.
I would draw my second, and you can do whatever.
I think you should really talk about rules of procedure and starting off as a new board with a sense of trust.
It doesn't make a difference because a new board can do what they want to do with this. I mean, they can pull it back, that's not the whole point. I would draw my second. Let the new board bring it up. I could care less. I just want to know what we can say and what we can't say. Somebody give me that answer.
Can I, Commissioner Davis? Go ahead.
The bill doesn't make sense.
Let me at least say this, that someone mentioned the oath. We take an oath to represent all the citizens, and I take that oath very seriously, and I took it to mean that when there was a personnel issue, that I couldn't go tell anybody about it. When it could cost the county money, when it could cost the citizens and taxpayers money, that I can't say anything about it. When it's regarding a land issue, the buying and selling of land, me releasing that information could cost the county lots of money. Now, I know that some of the breaches around here have cost the county money. And the assumption that it's my right to say it is wrong. You take an oath. I also know that it has a chilling effect on your ability to discuss stuff in the closed session. We've discussed legal issues and legal strategies in cases that we're in that people feel that they can reveal. That is totally wrong, and it costs the taxpayers dollars. So, I think we all need to admit that and understand that even the PIA law says that except for protecting legitimate governmental interests, and your tax dollars are legitimate governmental interests, and you deserve to know that they're going to be protected, and the privacy rights of individual citizens. There have been commissioners who have come into this room and have spoken specifically about the hiring and firing of employees and what they did and what they didn't do. It is wrong, and our employees deserve better. There is certain information that commissioners are privileged to have, and we need to respect that privilege, because you don't want your business, us being able to tell personal stuff about where you live, things that you're involved in, that you should expect is going to be held private. I know that when we're in a conference room and we need to discuss personally, we need to have the bantering back and forth with about issues, we need to be able to freely discuss them, not having somebody taking verbatim notes and revealing it to the press that Deborah Davis said this and then so-and-so responded with this. You don't need that. You don't need that. You need for us to be able to freely discuss issues and to be able to represent every corner of this county by being able to speak freely in a closed session regarding stuff that's private. If I may, just a little bit. I got some more notes.
Go right ahead.
And if we don't do something, if we don't at least send the message, we will not be able to conduct government business. There will be no way to do it. We'll have no open discussions. We can't discuss legal strategy in a room. We'd be forced to discuss legal strategy with our attorneys one-on-one. And it really does shut down. It has the possibility of shutting down government. It also exposes the county government to civil and criminal penalties for violations. If you violate it by releasing personnel information, by releasing other things that are otherwise protected by law, it exposes the county to further possible lawsuits. I feel strongly about it, Bobby. I commend you for bringing it up. I mean, we've gone back and forth as to what to do about it. And when legal drew this thing up, I mean, I knew it was going to be controversial, but it is needed. We need to send the message. Now, Commissioner Kelly did not vote for it the first time, but she said because it would be difficult to enforce. I agree. It's difficult to enforce, but we need to set the expectation.
Well, we're so close now. I think we just pass this down the road.
I agree.
No, I won't pass it.
But Commissioner Davidson, and I do want to say this.
Board. It's not a big deal.
And I can understand. I hear what you're saying, but here's what you need to understand. We are not here to legislate each other, okay? There are many boards before us. They had a padded room where our clerk sits now was a padded room, I kid you not, Ms. Mitchell, where the commissioners would be taken to the woodshed and told, come on, you all know this is true, what they were going to think and what they were going to do. Disagreement is...
It's not about disagreement.
What I'm saying is that the voters will decide that. But we cannot sit here and be judge and jury of each other. I think that is a dangerous precedent. And I also believe that with a new board and with rules of procedure, I don't, and again, we do not have an Attorney General's opinion. This is not about the Open Meetings Act. And let me just say one other thing. Suppose you find yourself in a scenario where you continue to have 3-2 votes in terms of going into closed session. Okay, that could happen. It could happen. Now, you have two people in that closed session who, A, may not agree that it's been called properly, B, are prevented from ever even filing perhaps an Open Meeting Act, which is very time-consuming, for fear that they will be censored or reprimanded. I can see that that people, have been frustrated through this process. All I'm saying is that, do you really want this to be your last act? I would think we deserve better.
It would not be our last act, but okay.
Well, it would be.
Why don't we just pass this on to the next board and we'll bring it up? And all I think anybody wants is to do the right thing, what's supposed to be done. Yes. How are we supposed to do it? So if it's guidelines and if everybody abides by them, I'm fine with that. It's all started because what is the procedure? And that's how this came about.
And the law isn't, the Open Meetings Act doesn't
I don't need a law. I just need to know what rules we have to go by. And I've been abiding by them.
But there's no way to enforce them, Bobby. Even when you're told what the rules are.
But even with this, how are you going to prove who talked and who don't talk?
Well, several times in the press, people have gone to the press and say, I've said it.
Okay, but that's different than
set the expectation.
We've had a number of instances where we did not know who breached it.
But when you go and you say, I'm telling this and I shouldn't be telling this and I know I shouldn't be telling this, there should be some way of some reprimand.
This is true, but what about the instances where you don't have it? And I'm sorry, because Commissioner Collins has been waiting so patiently, and I apologize, Commissioner Collins.
I think everyone, whether for or against, has made the case, but I really haven't seen nor heard any focus on, from my perspective, what the real protection is and why I think this was even raised in the first place. It's not for any necessary reason an attempt to try to create an avenue for the commissioners to out other commissioners. It's for the protection of those who may actually be subject to those actual conversations that were in closed session, and most specifically dealing with personnel matters.
But who's in there?
That was it. Say that again?
But it's mostly commissioners in there. I mean, by process of...
But I'm saying if the conversation is involving individuals who are not commissioners and it comes out in public, it may have an adverse effect. In addition, if you're dealing with a legal matter, if you're dealing with, a land use issue, something that is legal in its scope, and that presentation is brought to the forefront, I mean, it may have an adverse effect on
But
it.
Commissioner Collins, look how many legal things were breached during the tier map issues and the comp plan.
I mean,
this board, there have been some real challenges, and I think you'd be hard pressed to wind that and find out who actually said what to whom. I mean,
Well, I mean, I guess my closing thought is that the reality is there shouldn't be a need for this type of legislation. It honestly shouldn't. However, trust had broken down and been destroyed to the point where it was deemed necessary to attempt to find some type of solution. I mean, it is an issue related to the oath that all of us are expected to uphold when you're elected to public office. I mean, and there is a public interest in maintaining confidentiality in some issues. I mean, that's simply a fact. Mm-hmm. But I think everyone's made their point, so I just...
Well, we have a motion, and I think it's a very good point that perhaps trust has broken down and perhaps a new board could build trust. We have a motion. Commissioner Rucci has withdrawn his second. Is there a second to adopt? We have a second by Commissioner Collins to adopt the bill. This would be adopted as of tonight because we cannot hold the record open. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed. Okay, thank you. I hope that doesn't break down trust here before we can get out of here tonight.